grammar webinar for all ages about complex sentences. Now, in this short webinar, we're going to have 3 key learning aims. First of all, we're going to understand what main clauses are. Then we're going to understand the difference between a clause and a phrase. And then we're going to look at subordinate clauses, which are the key part of making complex sentences. Now, which of these sentences doesn't have a subject? Tuesday is fine, floating around, runs quickly, trying to tame the bull, shoots so many goals, Leah passes the ball, or slicing the onion. Which of these sentences has a subject? So you can see that actually only 2 of these sentences has a subject. Tuesday is fine has a subject because we know what or who it is about. Tuesday is fine. Tuesday is the subject. So we know that Tuesday is a good day for the plans. Floating around, we don't know what or who is floating around. So to change that, to have a subject, we'd have something like the butterfly was floating around. Runs quickly, doesn't have a subject. What or who runs quickly? Jack runs quickly in races. That makes more sense. Trying to tame the bull. Who or what is trying to tame the bull? Ruth was trying to tame the bull. That makes more sense. Shoot so many goals. No subject. Who or what shoots so many goals? Billy. And then Leah passes the ball. We know who or what is passing the ball. Leah. Slicing the onions. Who or what is slicing the onions? We can change it to Harriet. So that's the first thing. We understand what a main clause is. A main clause is a sentence that has a subject, that's who or what is doing something, and a main verb. So the what they are doing. The verb is a doing word. So you can see with all of these, they're main clauses. Who is the boy? What was he? He was small. He looked up at the haunted house. He is the subject and looked is the verb. And then the next ones, you've got the subject, he, or the floorboard, and then what they are doing. Now, you need to work out if it is a clause so that we can have a complex sentence. So, for example, a phrase doesn't have a verb. So these, you can see these ones are phrases: an abandoned ship, a white flower. They're phrases opposite the park. They don't have a verb. Now, in a subordinate clause, as well as the main clause, we have, in a complex sentence, as well as the main clause, we have a subordinate clause. So as well as a clause that tells us who and what they are doing, what they're being, you have additional information. It doesn't contain a main clause, subject or a verb, but it can't stand on its own. So, for example, he did not hunt is the main clause. You've got the subject, he, and what he's doing. He didn't hunt, what he's not doing. Because it was raining, now we've got the added information, the subordinate clause. So, as the sun was setting, subordinate clause. It can't stand on its own, but it's adding extra information. The lion stalked her prey. Now that can stand on its own. That's the main clause. You've got the lion, stalking, we've got a subject and a verb. Now look at this one. The lion, who was ravenous, stalked her prey. What we have here is the subordinate clause in between, slipped in or embedded in the main clause. So here finally are some examples. Although she was clumsy, Harriet caught the netball. You've got the subordinate clause and then the main clause. Emery arrived after the school bell had rung. We've got the main clause, Emery arrived, and then after the school bell had rung. Although I was terrified, I crept up the creaking stairs. You can see that the main clause, I crept up the creaking stairs, can stand on its own, but although I was terrified is the subordinate clause. And then finally, you can see that subordinate clauses and main clauses can switch positions. That means that we can have the subordinate clause at the start of the sentence, as the heavens opened, and the main clause at the end, she was drenched to the bone. Or the subordinate clause at the end of the sentence, thunder rolled across the sky, even though the sun shone brightly. So you can pause the webinar and answer these questions. As a quick recap, what's the difference between a simple sentence, a main clause, and a complex sentence? And what is a subordinate clause? And if you can't answer them, watch this webinar again. Thank you for joining me.